I want to thank you back again. This is our 5th Escape Watercolor Saturday. And what we're going to do for you today is a watercolor painting from Brown County. It's T.C. Steele's house. And it's really a kind of a cool place. If you ever get down to Nashville, Indiana, which they call it the Smoky Mountains of the Midwest, this is one place to visit. His house and his studio are open along with his grounds. And I had the privilege about 4 years ago of painting out on his grounds. I was asked by the Indiana Historical Museum Society to do a plein air demonstration. So why don't we get started? I'm using Core watercolor paints today. I'm using the, I'm reading underneath my tape here. Sometimes this is what I do for my classes, so I remember what paints go with what painting. I'm using sap green, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, brown madder, which I keep on calling alizarin crimson by mistake, but I don't use alizarin anymore. And I'm using olive green and raw sienna. This is T.C. Steele's house. His studio is directly west of this, and it's looks like this here. And I took this a while back. Since then, they have rejuvenated the garden and reconstituted what was there. Mrs. Steele planted the garden around the turn of the last century. But this is a beautiful estate, and the house is extremely interesting. They kept on adding on to it as their family grew. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by painting across the sky.
And just so you guys remember, on his Facebook studio page, we posted earlier this week the reference package, which included the photo, it included his pencil drawing on watercolor paper, and the paints he's using. All right, I'm done with the commercial.
Okay, we're done. All right, I am going to paint very quickly across the top, and we're painting from background to foreground and large shapes to small shapes. We want to have a basic imprint of the lights and darks that are in the photograph, and I am going to paint wet pigment on dry paper. It was quite a nice day out, but I don't want to make the sky as blue as it is, and I'm going to start by very carefully painting around certain subjects. I can paint through things that are going to be darker later on, but I'm going to paint around the house at the beginning, and the chimneys I'm going to just paint right through. I'm not really worried about the trees at this point. Those can be added on later. But I'm making the sky not quite as blue as the photograph is showing because I did adjust certain things in the photograph. Now, as you know, any watercolorist will tell you that timing is everything. So I'm going to come down to the bottom here and skip over the house. And I am going to use the sap green along with the raw sienna. And I'm going to start painting some lighter areas, and I'll darken them up as I move through. And I'm taking some ultramarine blue at this point with the sap green and the touch of the burnt sienna, just to gray it down a slight bit. But I'm trying to make a basic imprint of the image, and I'm kind of timing myself at this point on when I can go back up into the sky area here. So I'm going to take some more of that raw sienna and some of the sap green, and then some of the olive green. What's interesting is the difference on pigment from one name brand to another. Sometimes sap green has quite a bit more blue in it than some other name brands, but it's still within that green range there. It's not a blue-green. So,
Cheryl from your Elmhurst Fall 2019 class said hello.
Hello.
Jan said hi. Diane says hello. And Valerie said hello to me.
Hello. Okay, I'm going back up into the sky here. The pigment is pretty well set, but yet It's wet enough that I'll keep my soft edges. You want to keep your edges as soft as possible. And I am blocking in very quickly, trying to keep this mass somewhat connected. The trees up behind the house.
Carol Van Arkel said, hi Dale, Marilee, and Poppy. I'm sorry, Carol, but Poppy is...
in confinement.
Yes, because she was a bad little puppy today. We'll talk about it on Facebook. She said, a million thanks for all the wonderful Saturday art classes. Love you guys. Well, we love you too. And Gregory from Morton Grove is on, as well as Patty and Carol from Minocqua. Glenda is watching. Becky Kraft is back. Ellen, hi Dale and Marilee. Judy Miller is from Phelps. Hey.
Hello. How's the snow up there? So I am going just across. I don't worry about too much seeping into the house here and there because it's going to be influencing some of the color anyways. But I'm leaving a little bit more sky holes in here to start. And I'm taking some more of the sap green, some of the ultramarine blue, and off to this side I'm adding a little bit stronger movement. Like so, and I want this to not quite fall up the ridge here. And then I'm going to go to a smaller brush here, and I'm going to block in some of this just a little bit over here. And I'm going to take a little bit of warmth, adding some of that raw sienna and some of the cobalt blue, because the roof has a little bit of warmth to it. Not a lot, but it does have some, so I'm going to intensify a little bit. I'm not worried about the house or the body of the house at this point, but I'm trying to get everything blocked in. And I'm going to then go right over the house with a little bit of the burnt umber and some of the ultramarine blue and some of the brown madder, because it's going to get fairly dark later on. But this will be the end of the first phase of the block in. I'm not going to block in everything. I'm going to try to have things meld together here, quite a bit softer edges here and there. And this will act as the undertone body color for the house. Add a little bit more ultramarine blue to this.
Ellen said hello. Judy Miller. Where is it?
Hello.
I already said Judy. Robert T. Barrett is watching. Jill Brown. Hi, everyone. And also at the bottom of the comment feed, I listed where you can find Dale's blog post links and the links to the video from the past and also today's photo reference.
Okay. I've gone in and I've mixed up the sap green, a little bit of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and I want to get a few more darks in here that need to be stated right now. And I'm going to use the toothbrush with a little bit of water on it.
So Rosemary Ford says, love watching Dale. He makes it look so easy. Doesn't he though? Jeez. And then Yvonne says, hello from Montana.
Hello, Montana. And I keep on taking the toothbrush and spraying just a little bit of water on the green, dark green, and I'm allowing it to kind of flow where it wants to at this point. I'm going to take some of the larger areas here at this point A little bit more ultramarine. Every 4 to 5 brush strokes, I am changing the color or temperature or value. I want to make sure that I'm not painting the same color from here to here. I had a little bit of cobalt in there.
Eric just joined us too. Where are you from, Eric?
He's not going to tell you.
No, he will. There's a 7-second lag on this.
So I'm going to pull out some lights in here.
Eric Martin, he said, hello, Mr. Popovich. Must have been one of your students.
Mr. Popovich, you're making me feel old.
Eric's from Aurora. Suzanne Dreyer's watching, and Deb has joined us from the Great North Woods.
Hello, Deb. How's the snow up there? Up north where we have our log cabin, I think they got around 8 to 10 inches. So I'm going to add a little bit of this green up on the roof here. And it kind of flows around a little bit.
Lynn is from California.
Ah, the warm state. Mostly warm.
Deb said, howdy, Mr. Popovich.
Hello. So this is the first wash that I'm putting in. The sky is kind of dissipated as the photograph will tell you. There's not a lot of sky showing. It's very spackled. When I was shooting this photograph, the sun was naturally off to the south, which is to the right of the house. But it was really bouncing off the house quite a lot. I am going to pull up some of that green off the roof up here.
So you're still in step 1 then?
This is the end of step 1.
Okay.
My wife is asking so she can know where I'm stopping and starting for the video.
Eric said that he was, you were his instructor at the American Academy of Art in 96 and 99. You weren't one of those ones he flunked in 96, were you? Just teasing. Bob wants to know if we got snow the other day. Yes, we did.
Second time this week.
Gail says she's enjoying the demo.
Okay. I just want to clear the roof off of that excess green up here a little bit. And we'll take a commercial break while this dries. What I wanted to show you today is a book on Brown County. One of the premier artists in the book is, of course, is T.C. Steele. And this has all of the Brown County artists. It was basically a colony of artists, which you really have to watch out for artists when it gets there. But this is one of his paintings, if you can see that. Gotta go this way. I got my art director redirecting me. But wonderful artwork. I have a book of his somewhere, but I think I left it up at the log cabin. But they have a great library thing down there at the T.C. Steele House. They also sell the same books in the gallery that I'm in down there.
And the name of that gallery is?
Is the Brown County Art Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
It's at I forget what the address is.
One Artist Way.
One Artist Way. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take just a second to dry it since most of the glistening of the water is gone.
Do you want to show them how you're drying it? Do you want to explain to them how you dried it and why you used your hand?
I use my hand to see if it's dry, but I'm using the back of the hand. It has no oil or very little oil. What I'm doing is making sure that the paint is dry. We got a little bit of movement in the paper here. This is 300-pound indigo paper that I'm using. It has a lot of rough surface to it. Again, the choice of your paper is always important for your subject matter. All right, I'm going to go back to the background. Again, back to the background is a reoccurring process until the background is set and you start to finish things as you come more forward. So I am going to...
Could you scoot your... I can't see your... Okay, that's perfect.
I have to be near the painting too here.
I know, but you always are before. Let me scoot this up a little bit. Want people to be happy.
Okay, I've cleaned my palette off. And a photograph, you have to remember, gives you an idea of what the structure is about, the lights and the darks. As far as the color goes, it gives you hints of it. But in reality, a photograph is not realistically done. You don't want to follow the photograph. But the colors in there are not what you call all natural most of the time. So we're taking a little bit of artistic license and changing things.
Paula Winter said, "Hello, Dale. It's been quite a while since I've watched a demo." That's Paula Shapiro Winter.
Shapiro's daughter.
Yes.
Hello, Paula. Glad you could watch.
Paula, I would move the camera away from Dale and show you the painting we have of your father's, but
We'll do that at the end. So I'm painting carefully around the house. Your process slows down quite a bit more in the second phase. The first phase is always a little bit more of a quicker thing, establishing lights and darks right away. I am carefully painting around the house at this point. And I'm going to isolate a few things here and there, but I am going to add a couple of things with the toothbrush here so I don't have to touch the paper, just to add a little bit of color up in here. So I'm not disturbing anything with the brush. I'm going to take some olive green here along with the raw sienna. As we get up a little bit higher in some areas of the trees, it becomes a little bit warmer and also lighter.
Sandra's watching from Lando Lakes and enjoying the video. Gail is from Pompano Beach. Lori Lee said her closed caption isn't working. I don't know if I have to set that up, Lori Lee, or if Facebook automatically does it. I'm sorry about that. Phyllis Kingsland said, "This is beautiful, Dale. Great job on camera, Marilee." Well, thank you. And I'm in Lowell today.
You're in Lowell. Chicago's invading Indiana. I thought you weren't supposed to go outside your borders there.
And she's got, I'm sorry, Jan said she's got a trifecta Saturday. She watched Becker at 10, worked on Krajecki at 11, and now she's live DP at 12. Hey, well, you go, girl.
We have Bob watching today.
Ellen is in Arborvitae.
Oh, okay. To the west of us up there.
In God's country?
Yep. So I'm encompassing the house quite a bit more with the leaf because this will help the foreground quite a bit when I get done. But you can see I'm changing the colors as I move across. And I'm not going to bring too much attention to some of the things that are off here on the right hand side. So I'm going to go back a little bit darker as we go towards the bottom here. I'm going to add a little bit of the sap and the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna. And don't overmix your colors on your palette. I'm going to push that out a little bit.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at my iPad, and it looks like it went fuzzy. So I'm going to see if I can correct that.
Now, I'm going to come down to the foreground with some of that same dark. Wanted that to sit here just a little bit so I can go in and manipulate some of that dark up on top here. And I'm going to take some lighter value color and enter it in here also, just to give this a little bit more texture. And again, back to the dark. So I'm always going back and forth with my values to a great extent. And I'm going to take a little bit of the cobalt blue here. And I want to cool this down a little bit more. And I'll take the toothbrush and I'll soften the edge in this fashion.
Millie, Dale and I are wondering the same thing, getting back to our cabin. We're wondering when we'll be able to get back up north too. Carol Peter said, lost you, froze on last week's demo. Well, you know what? If you check Dale's Facebook page, we will be posting last week's demo on YouTube, and I've edited it and added some extra stuff to it, and you should be able to see it. But to address the blurriness, it must be because of internet. There's a lot of people on it right now, and even other people are complaining when I Googled it. Phyllis said she had to do laundry, and that's why she's in Indiana.
You leave your laundry in Indiana? That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to go back into the house at this point and make a little bit stronger statement. I'm going to take a little bit of the burnt sienna with a little bit of the cobalt just to gray it down a little bit. And this roof really changes color according to the light and so forth. I'm always amazed on how it does change. And I'm going to put in some of the shadow over here at this point.
Bob said that David Becker gave you a nice shout out during his class this morning, so you should do the same.
Hello, David. He's also doing the watercolor hibernations, as a lot of the artists are now.
And he will also be at Dillman's just like Dale. So you might want to go to Dillman's website and check out what David's going to be teaching this year. I'm not sure when he's going to be back because right now with the lockdown, they're not sure who's going to be the opening artist. They had to cancel their trip to Europe and their first May artist. So Dale's going to be at the end of September, early October. I don't know when. I think David's going to be there twice. So
right. Okay. I'm taking the ultramarine blue and the brown matter, and I'm going to go in here and start establishing the darks within the house here. And I'm going to abbreviate a few things here and there. Got different combinations of the ultramarine blue and the brown matter along with burnt sienna a little bit. And I'm going to kind of dry brush this in with a drier brush, dragging some of that pigment in.
Wendy's back from Chesterton. Wendy, we didn't publish last week's blog post yet because at the beginning of this, Dale walked his viewers through what he did after last week's demo, and he went back and worked on the painting for an hour or so afterwards. So I'm going to edit that into last week's blog post, and I'll let you guys know when it's up.
And I'm going to go in and tease in some of these other shrubs, the top of the shrubs here, so that it gets a little bit more definition. I'm not concerned about any windows that are in here because they're really not showing. What I'm concerned about is the shape of things within this area. I'm going to add a few accents of color within these areas of colors that are showing up in here in different areas. So I keep on back and forth different combinations of the ultramarine blue, the burnt sienna, and the brown madder. And I will pull out later on some of these different areas in here a little bit. But the house is quite dark. There's actually a lot of windows in that dark area, but they're not really showing up. And as you should know by now, I'm going to have to go back over these dark areas to redarken them, because you'll find that the pigment will dry quite a bit lighter. And there's a little bit of an overhang here that I want to put in. So I'm dry brushing a few areas in here. But moving into the shrubs here very carefully so I don't lose the kind of the little jagged edges of what's being popping up in front. I'm also going to take some of the cobalt blue. There's a number of blue flowers and blue objects that are in here, and I'm going to just enter some of these things in here while I'm painting. And as we move off to the left on the house, I have this wonderful big shrub that's overtaking the front of the house. I believe it's gone now, but it was there. Sometimes I'll just take water to let it bleed in a little bit so it creates that variety of edge that we're looking for. But it's starting to take a little bit more shape now. And I want to pull out a few of these little things that are in here. I'm looking a little bit closer at the photograph to get some of that shapes that are showing up within here. There's actually quite a bit going on in the front of the house, but you really can't see it.
I believe those are rose bushes. Old rose bushes.
Okay, that would be the end of the second phase at this particular point. This is already fairly dry up here, and this is a little damp down here. But I am going to go in and kind of pull out a few things here and there before I go up into this area to encompass the house. And there's a little bit of an overhang or awning on this edge of the house. I'll take my brush here and lift. I lost a little bit of the roof line of the house here. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of that color I just put down, and I'm going to push this roof back just a little bit so that the front of the roof comes out, or the front roof over here comes out a little bit nicer. because this house here is really kind of interesting to go into. It was originally part of his studio, which I'm still trying to figure out how he painted with so much color in the house at the time. And it is all the original colors from what they say.
And the inside is really bohemian. They actually have a stuffed peacock in their living room, a male peacock with those big feathers, which was very Victorian. And it looked very Parisian in there.
So I'm adding a few green strokes up in here and yellow green strokes to add to the feeling of the vine going up. This is going to get a lot darker, but it's not going to be totally dark. I want to show some of that form. So I'm going to go up into the trees now up above this. And I'm going to take the olive green, a little bit of the blue that I have over on the other side here, the cobalt blue, and I am going to start to put some of the foliage in that needs to be darker as it comes down. I'm not worried about the trunks of the trees at this point. I'll put them in where they need to be. And up here in the corner, I'm going to make this a little bit darker in here. And I'm trying to make this hold together and have some sort of semblance of order here while I'm painting.
David Becker is in Burlington, Vermont doing his Facebook Live. You lucky rascal, that's a beautiful town.
I think he's painting Burlington, Vermont, from
Yeah.
what I saw.
It's a beautiful town.
But I don't think he's in Burlington.
Well, it says David Becker Art Facebook Live demo, Burlington, Vermont. Oh, maybe he's painting. You're right. I'm sorry.
He's painting it.
Well, it's still a beautiful town.
Oh, yeah. I want some of this stuff to be a little bit softer up in here a little bit. Not by too much.
Anybody got any questions? You're getting kind of quiet out there. You want Dale to sing and dance? No, don't have him sing.
Well, the volume on the radio goes up in the car when I start singing. You don't want me singing. Okay, a little bit of burnt sienna in with the green and the cobalt blue, the sap green, and I'm coming over to this side of the house, and I'm going to make this a little bit darker. To push the house out just a little bit over here. There is a tree or bush or an arborvitae that comes up over on this side, covers up part of the house. But slowly I'm attacking different areas of this. I'm moving around a little bit, adjusting things as I'm looking. One of the things about demonstrating is that I don't have always have the opportunity to stand back and look at what's there as I would when I'm painting in a studio on my lonesome self here. Okay, that gave me some sort of semblance of order. I need a little bit more dark over here. There's trees coming in from every different angle behind this house and out in front. And I think I'm going to leave the background kind of like that for now. I'm going to come back to the foreground and I'm going to paint the shrubs a little bit darker in the foreground here.
You know, Millie, you're right. It does look like the North Woods, but the only difference is there's a ridge with, I don't know where the difference is between a mountain and a hill, but it's breathtaking. They call it the $1 Million View, and the homes that are on this ridge sell for over $1 million. And it's nothing but a vista of forest down below. And in the autumn, will just knock your socks off. But I have to say, it's not as pretty as the golds, orange, and crimsons of the Great North Woods.
Now I'm taking some of the pure cobalt blue and I'm throwing it in here. I'm going to soften it later, but it has a lot of these different color variations in the photograph that you probably can't see.
Hi, Cecilia. Where are you from?
Now I'm just pulling out some of the stems that are holding up these shrubs here a little bit. They're not evident in the photograph, but I know they're there. Yes, I'm touching the paper. And I'm going to take a little bit of toothbrush here, and I'm going to continue the movement down here on the bottom, and I'm going to go back into the house.
Bob wants to know, is the pencil sketch from the PDF as the base drawing to painting
Yes.
on top of? Yes. Yep. And then he also wrote, second question, do you ever do value sketches?
Sometimes I tell my students to do value sketches all the time, but many times I'll do color roughs of the subject matter on scrap pieces of paper, and I try to initiate things from that particular thing. What I need to do here is I need to pull out that awning, and I'm going to put the chimneys in at this point.
Jan would like to see the reference photo again.
This is the reference photo. It's really kind of a simple house when you look at it from the outside, but it's really intriguing on the inside.
And Jan, we'll have it on the YouTube video. It'll be in the upper right-hand corner all while he's painting. So you can always go back and forth and compare. And Sandra's watching. Hey, Sandra, where are you from?
Okay, this has a little bit of a division here. There's an overhang on the house, or an awning type feeling. And let that sit there a little bit, and I'm going to soften it just somewhat, just to give a suggestion of it. I'm going to go in, I'm going to put up the chimneys. So I'm using a little bit of the madder brown and the burnt sienna, and probably a little bit of blue when they're in the shadow. I'm going to start with this one over here, which is in the shadow.
Judy Miller said, is your ultramarine French ultramarine?
No, it's ultramarine green shade.
From Core.
From Core. Or I think it's pretty close to that. I don't know what let me call it out here. See if I can find it. Here it is. It's just ultramarine. I don't want to make a big deal out of the chimneys, so I'm not putting too much emphasis on them. I'm going to worry about the cast shadows on the house, or on the house roof later. And there's a chimney back here on the back of the house. This house has I don't know how many stoves in it, but there's a chimney right about here that I'm just going to pull out and worry about it later. And then the very last chimney is right here, if I can get it in there. I'll develop the chimneys later, but I wanted to establish them now so I know where they're at. Now I'm going to go back into the house at this point, and I'm going to add a few little details here and there on the darker areas to support some of the other things that are going on here. There is a gutter overhang type thing here. I don't want to emphasize it all the way around, but I'm going to show a little bit of it here and there. It just gives a little bit better character of the house itself. He picked the second highest peak in Nashville to build his house, which was interesting. It's called Singing Winds, I believe. So over here I'm putting in just a little bit of darkness here and there to blend into the tree.
Say hello to David Becker. He's watching.
David Becker, how are you?
Thank you for the shout out on your 10 o'clock.
Yes, thank you very much. I guess we're all doing the same thing between you and I and Bob Krajewski, giving lessons on the internet, which is a good thing.
Keeps Dale out of trouble, I'll tell you that.
I'm always in trouble. And I'm going to go in here and make this a little bit darker. So the house is starting to take a little bit more of a solid look to it at this point. Now, once I put something down, I leave it set there a little bit. There was a window right in here. And I'm going to just kind of hint at it back there. I don't want it coming out. There's things that we put in and then take out later on so that we can keep the edges soft.
You're the young woman from India, Vaishali, is back.
Hello.
And she's so looking forward to this. She was the one that did last week's painting, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Did such a nice job on that. David said it's looking good.
I'm getting all the numbers covered. But I am keeping certain things within that dark area so it's just not so flat looking. Even when you're looking at it with the naked eye and not the camera, it was very dark. The house is a reddish brown in the light, but it just had a very dark look to it. I'm going to start bringing that right down into here.
It was kind of like Lincoln log color,
Yeah.
if you're from that era.
And I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue straight and put that in here for a little bit of extra accent. There's always things that we do in a painting that the camera never picks up. It just doesn't have the capability of doing it. But I'm taking my time a little bit more at this point and trying to pay attention to the edges, what's sharp, what's not supposed to be sharp. There's a little bit of blue up in here, and there's quite a bit of blue down in here. I'm just trying to make this a little bit more interesting than the photo itself.
Just want to apologize again. I'm watching on my iPad, watching for questions and comments, and I noticed that it's going in and out of focus. And that, as I'm in my research, like I said earlier, is because of the internet.
That we have no control over.
And Ted said, hello and thanks for your demonstrations. This is my first watch. I'm in
Thank you for
Nashville.
watching.
He's in Nashville, Indiana. And he is a resident practicing watercolor painter.
Well, I'm going to be down in Nashville in the middle of August for a watercolor workshop, if you're interested.
At the Brown County Art Gallery.
So I'm going to go in here now, and now that I have certain things put in, I'm going to be a little bit more bold with the cast shadow on the roof here, allowing the light to come through.
Sylvia said that, I guess you did this for your Elmhurst Art Museum class.
Long time ago.
And she said hers didn't look as good, but now she knows where to improve on it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Becker wants to know when you're teaching at Dillman's.
The last week of August, or part of the September, I'm sorry. Last part of September into
October 1st.
October 1st or 2nd. We're usually up there 4th of July and so forth. If you're up there, I'll check the schedule and I'll come over and harass you a little bit. Maybe we'll go out for a drink.
And also, the two of you are supposed to be doing a demo during their workshop in June.
Yes.
And I am not quite sure, David, are they still doing... They're kind of probably playing it by ear to see if that June workshop open house is going to be a go or not. And Bob, yes, the recording even went blurry.
We don't know why.
Ted said, great, I'll get with them and check your schedule.
Thank you.
You can also go to dalepopovich.com and look up 2020 workshops and demos.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull out some of this shrub up front here, just a little bit, and kind of soften things. Yeah, I've done this painting once before that I can recollect.
As a demo.
As a demonstration. I haven't done a studio painting of it yet. It's a fun subject. I mean, it has a lot of interesting characteristics to it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in the trees where I feel they need be. And I'm going to go back and, if I do have my drawing of this, because I did cover up the trees. There's a couple of trees I wanted in a certain place for a reason. So I'm back at the drawing. This is the actual drawing, if you can see this. If I did that too fast, I'm sorry.
But it'll, on the YouTube video, I'll have it in there for at least 12 seconds so you can view it and you can always stop it.
Okay, that was the one I was concerned about. There it is.
Well, Bob, you know what I've tried doing is I've tried pushing on the screen when it goes out of focus on my iPad. And it's still, it doesn't focus or not focus. I don't know what the problem is. Hi, Don Skinner. I'm glad you're watching.
Now I'm allowing the tree to go in and out of the foliage. This one is out in front, so you're going to see a little bit more of it. But I keep the bottom of it fairly soft. There's a few more trees in the background, and I'm going to start with some of the less known trees back here by very lightly putting in just a few of them. And I'm going to allow those to go in and out of the foliage itself.
Bob, when we record for his online art school, Towering Winds Academy of Fine Arts, I never have a problem. So I'm believing that it's internet or Facebook. If you find anything out, though, I would definitely help me out. And, when we finally get to meet after this coronavirus, I'll buy you 2 drinks.
Oh, I thought he was buying them. He's the one down in the Virgin Islands, not us. So putting in the tree trunks at this particular time gives the background a little bit more validity on what's there. I'm putting them in different values and colors. I'm using some blues and some browns and graying things down a little bit. And then I'll put in branches later on. Going along pretty good here. I was just looking at the time. Now I'm waiting for the house to dry to see how dark or how light this is. I'm also going to go in and darken the chimneys at this point since I'm fairly dry. And the top one here needs a little bit more warmth in it. So I'm going to put some more warmth into that chimney. It's really kind of lovely drive up into this area here if you ever get to visit it. It's kind of mountainous in a certain way, and you can overlook his property. There's things to see on his property. Like I say, the studio is a big barn type structure that he's built later on in life. But most of his earlier paintings were done in the house itself.
Vishali would like to know what kind of paper you're using.
I'm using indigo paper. It has indigo rough. It's 300 pound. They used to make a 210, but they don't make the 210 anymore. So they just make 140 pound, and they make the 300 pound. Now the 300 pound, I can tape all the way around. If you're using 140 pound, you would want to just tape it at the top and allow it to expand and contract. Now I'm going to go back into the background here with a few selective darks, because these areas in here are more in shadow.
Rena just came on board, is watching. Hi, Rena. Where are you from? Aaron said, when I mix my paints, it gets a little bubbles in it. Is this normal?
Don't use seltzer. Bubbles?
And thanks so much for these videos.
I've never heard of bubbles unless you're, I don't know.
What kind of paint are you using? What brand would be my first question.
Yes.
And what kind of water? Ellen wants to know whose studio is this. She missed the beginning.
This is my studio in my home. I built the studio after I was chased out of the original one. My wife started getting more and more computer equipment, so I was banished from up in the second floor. Now I'm in the basement. So I spent a year making this and putting it together with a laundry room and a storage area.
Okay. I'm using Cotman. I know that's a no-no.
Yeah, Cotman is a student grade watercolor. It has a lot of filler in it. which doesn't allow you to have intense color nor permanent color. So you don't want to use any cotton. I've had students come to class, several classes that I do teach at different places, and they'll come with name brands I've never heard of before, like Reeves, which I think they got from Hobby Lobby. You don't want to buy cheap brands because it's just like golfing. You got to have good golf clubs and good balls and a decent golf course. But you want to have good paints. You want to have good brushes, and you want to have good paper. The paper has to be 100% cotton to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, you're fighting yourself. But you can get away with some cheaper brushes. I always prefer real hair brushes. They're expensive. They're a little bit harder to come by, but nowadays. But you can still achieve a good painting with a synthetic or synthetic blend, which has real hair in it. I'm lightening up a few spots that need to be lightened up that got a little lost in here. But you don't want to use cheap things. Apparently I lost my art director.
No, I'm just writing a little note to one of your viewers. Plus, I'm listening to our dog whining.
She should be fine.
She's singing, I think.
Oh, she's singing. Okay. Now I'm going to put another tree in here of a different size. And I want to put in, belongs to this tree actually, but I want to put another tree right here, going up into here. There's always adjustments that one makes while they're painting for the most part, but doing a rough will help you eliminate anything that you should have going on. All right, I am going to go in and warm up the front roof just a little bit. This will remain cooler. And I'm going to warm this up just a slight bit in the light area.
All right, Pam wants to know, is it harder or easier to paint on 140 pound? Is it thicker than, thus only tape at the top? What is better for a beginner?
Well, price-wise for a beginner, you should probably stay with the 140 pound. As you go up the ladder, 300 pound, which is a heavier weight than 140, you might want to stay with the 140 pound for a while until you feel that you're worthy of going to 300 pound. I stayed on 140 pound for quite a while as a student. In fact, we were using 90 pound when I was in school, which you have to stretch. Leave it in a vat for 15, 20 minutes or 10, 15 minutes. And we would have to then staple it down, wash it down with a little bit of clear water with a sponge, and let it dry before we could paint on it. Using 300 pound or 140 pound, you can go in and have immediate painting process put onto it, but you have to tape the 140 pound only at the top. And sometimes you might want to put 2 tabs of tape somewhere about the middle on the sides if you so wish. but it's something that you can kind of graduate up to if you're looking to get started on watercolor.
First of all, Erin said thank you. She'll get better paints, and thank you about the soap. Also, Millie said, can you paint on both sides of indigo?
I do. If I feel I've got something that isn't worthy to be shown in public, I will use the other side. Sometimes I will cut it in half, and then I'll use the other side. If Paula is still watching, Irv Shapiro, my boss and watercolor instructor, a student had picked up a watercolor demonstration that he had done, or a painting he had done years before, and said, look what I found at the antique shop. And she showed him the painting, and he says, what did you pay for it? And he says, well, I paid $75 for it. And he offered her twice the amount, and she took it so that he could have it back. And I went in his office later on that day, and it was torn in half in the corner. He did not want it to get out into the public domain, because there's things that we've sold and you go, ooh, I sold that and I wish I had it back because it's terrible. I've gotten rid of a lot of my watercolors. I tore them up, tore them in half so that they're not any good for anything after that.
It's a sad day at the Popovich house when I see that pile of paintings all torn into shreds. Just so you know, Bub said, super solidarity for poor Miss Poppy. Well,
Why, what's wrong with Miss Poppy?
well, she's practicing social distancing right now.
That's right.
She's up on the second floor in her crate, howling.
Poor child.
She's spoiled rotten.
Trust me, she'll survive. So I'm adding some of the raw sienna in here at this point to give it a little bit more color up front. And I'm going to soften this area over here. And I want to add a little bit of the green that's up here on the roof here. It's kind of a vine climbing. Kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of things that just sort of pop up in this garden. Actually, I like the garden overgrown when they had it more than I like it now, since it's a little bit more controlled looking.
In the last couple of years, they added a whole brand new building where they can hold workshops. They now have you can apply to be a resident artist there and stay for a month. And they have a little cottage that you can stay at. And they said they're very loose on artists writing grants, because as we all know, artists are visual people and not wordsmiths. And they said they take that into account. So, and they pay for the cottage. They pay you to paint there for a month so people can watch. And I forgot what the dollar amount was. $3,000 they pay you?
Yeah, something like that.
Indiana Dunes also has an artist program too, where they've got a cottage where you can live on the dunes for a month.
What I'm doing now is wetting the pigment a little bit that I just put down, and so that it just kind of runs, because the whole foreground was runny to begin with. going to take a little bit of the sap green here and hit it into this area right here just a little bit, just to give this some texture. And one more pass at the house and some of the trees in the background here. One thing about trees is you don't want to make them brown or gray. They have a lot of color in them. So you want to try to make them various colors from what is around the subject matter. I'm touching the paper. Okay, a little bit back into the chimneys again. They keep on lightning on me. So I'm going to make them quite a bit darker. Just want this to be a little bit darker in shadow here. This one has got a little bit of character to it.
Painting anyway.
Okay. All right, I'm going to modify a few things here in the house.
Linda's here. Hi, Linda.
I don't know why we lost feed, but we lost feed. This is the last phase of the watercolor. And I'm going to put in the final details, as we call it. And I'm going to start by taking and lifting a few things here and there with the toothbrush wet.
You'll also notice that we're going the vertical format because when I tried to go horizontal with Dale's phone, it squishes it and makes him look like he's 2 feet tall.
So I am adding just the final touches. I'm sorry that this happened. We don't know why. But we're going down the final lane here. So right now I'm just adding a little bit of water on the paper with the pigment and adding the softness of the flowers and foliage and stuff into the house. And reshaping a few things here and there. We'll ever be wondering about what Facebook's problem is.
Well, it might not be that. It might just be there's so many people in their homes and something got overloaded.
So I'm going to pick out a few different things here that are coming out of the garden with the razor blade. All right, these are just the final touches. I'm just adding a little bit of greenery up here on the vine that is on the little portico that comes down, and some of the other things. We'll figure out hopefully by next week what is transpiring with the internet. A couple different accents here and there.
No, I don't think the internet has any accents.
Yeah, it has a
Art.
small accent. But just some final touches here and there, that's all I want to do. I still want to see this part of the roof come out just a little bit more. And I'm going to have a few cast shadows going across this roof too from the trees.
And if you guys could please like Dale's Observer Artist Watercolors Dale L. Popovich page, we'd really appreciate it. And if you go to his YouTube channel, please subscribe. Ultimately, I'd like to take this over to YouTube because they offer a better filming feed. But until we get 1,000 subscribers, we can't do that.
This is interesting why that did that, but I'll just finish this up here. I'm adding a few accents of color. Putting on full pigment at this point, which I do occasionally. And a couple accents inside the house here.
Millie, we had to change telephones. I'm glad you could get back. For some reason, we lost feed, and I can't even get back onto Facebook on my phone, which is our primary camera we use to work on these little Saturday events. So we used Dale's telephone instead, but when I would go horizontal, it made him 2 feet tall. It squished everything. So, sorry, it's vertical.
We went from the normal world to the land of Oz in a matter of seconds.
And she also said, glad to see the end. It's beautiful. When I edit this for YouTube, it'll all be together, and it'll be like it never happened.
Hopefully. I'm sure it will be. A couple more things, and then we'll call this to an end. I want to bring another tree in right here across the house. Some minor adjustments down here. There actually are paths going through here now, but when I took the picture several years ago, there were no paths whatsoever that were too clear up front. So I'm going to tone this down over here a little bit. And I add a little bit of water or color with the toothbrush. Tone this down a little bit. It's a little bit too light. And the final thing is to add some of the branches to hold up this shrub or trunks.
Glenda, you can go to Dale's website, which is Dale Popovich. That's DalePopovV as in Victor, ICH.com. And at the top tabs, you will see supplies and library. And there he's got a PDF of his supply list. Plus, if you scroll down, I know it's a really long page, but he's got videos. He talks about supplies. He's got the supply that he likes, links to them. We are an affiliate, Amazon affiliate member, so he does get a small amount of compensation from Amazon, just so you know. Just so we're transparent, like the watercolor.
Okay, I'm taking off the tape now, and I still want to take one more look at it. I'm very careful on this tape, on this paper, because you can, and I have, torn up a little bit of the painting at the same time. So I don't burnish it down, and I'm pulling away from the painting at this point. And I'm going to take my foundation brush I found, I explained last week, from the dollar store. It's a woman's foundation brush for putting on makeup. There's different sizes. And I've been using this for softening, blending, and even lifting, which is kind of a fun thing.
Now, a friend of ours who lives in Westchester, Illinois, went out yesterday to the dollar store and found 3 different sizes for $1 a pop.
Yeah, don't order them from Amazon. They're too expensive. Or go to the dollar store. It's a nylon hair or whatever, very soft. Our dog was playing with it a little bit. So I'm just going in here and adding a few minor things in here, not too much. Pulling out a couple lights here and there. And I think we're done at this point. So we have the original photo and the painting. So I want to thank you for watching with me. Sorry about the interference of
Painting back over.
of the Facebook thing. We have no control over that, unfortunately. But I'll see you here next Saturday for another quarantine paint-off. And you can, Marilee will have this posted that you can do a paint along with this if you wish from the internet. So don't be shy, ask questions while I'm painting next week.
Or private message them afterwards. And remember, go to Dale's website and you can find all the past videos and the past paintings. This is our 5th one. And on top of that, hopefully Dale will be teaching again and you can learn about his classes around the Chicagoland area. He got a note from Elmhurst that they're canceling everything through the summer. And Main Street supposedly will start up in May. And Palette and Chisel, no word on that yet. And also his workshops will be posted too. But mostly we just enjoy you guys being here. And don't forget to check out Towering Winds Academy of Fine Arts. You can go to his website and get all the information. And we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Before we start, I want to show you where we left off last Saturday. This is the, let me find it here. I can do this. I want to show you what was done last Saturday. This is where we left off, if you remember. I have all this inclination after something's done, I look at it for a while. And I put a few more things into it. And this is the way that the demonstration ended up. I don't know if you can see this, but I had toned down the roof and so forth and added more embellishments in this area on the house and added a few more darks and toned down a few things. Some of these things in the foreground are a little bit too light. But I always have a habit of going back, looking at it. When I finish with any painting in my studio, I do look at it for a day or two and decide what I want to do with it. So this is where we ended up. This is where we were last Saturday.
And I'm going to edit it and put this into last week's demonstration. And then that will go onto YouTube. And then in his blog post, you'll be able to see better last week's painting, plus all the steps and the current painting.
But this is Irving Shapiro's painting. He did have one book out. From what I understand, he had a second one almost finished just before he died, but it never came out. But he does have videos that are still available.
You can find him on eBay.
So thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your questions. I really appreciate it. And you do make our Saturdays also. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.